fellow paranormalers, welcome to this channel. Subject that I'd like to talk about today and express is about radio sweet boxes or spirit boxes and apps that are used on tablets. I personally have a problem with using apps on tablets, and I'll explain the reasons why. I come from a history of experience about using radio technology and picking up EVPs on all sorts of recorders. Some of the first recorders I ever had were little reel-to-reel devices, and then tape, like dictaphone tape type things, and cassette recorders, and all of these things. And I also pick up EVPs from, well, they're not EVPs, but communication from things like water, trees. I very often hear spirits myself talk directly and things like that. So, and I kind of know what I'm talking about history-wise. Radios, a relatively new thing for me. I have actually picked up spirit comms from radios in the past, unknowingly doing it and listening to these things. I use baby monitor, walkie-talkies. I mean, all of this kind of thing, all of this kind of radio-based or radio frequency technology is being round and being used by, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world. It's kind of tried and tested technology. It's difficult to interfere with it. I know boxes can, spirit boxes and radios and things like that can be modified, and people do modify them with sweep kits, if that's the technology, the terminology for it. You can do manual radio scanning if you want. I've hacked a radio myself that I had. Didn't realise that it could actually be hacked, and you keep the button on the scanning of the stations, and it works. It's not a problem. It works, and you get responses. You get answers to questions. You get communication. And in my opinion, there's very little that can be faked about that, because it is very random. Radio stations are different in every single country, and are in different languages. I've used my spirit box in other countries, and I will get, if I'm using it, I will get them in my language, and if my wife uses it or anyone else uses it, they get it in their language. So, you can't kind of fake that stuff. My concerns and my problem with using app-based, I don't like calling them spirit boxes, because they're not really spirit boxes. Yes and no. Okay, this is going to be a contentious video, I know that. I'm going to get people on one side agreeing with what I'm saying and whatever, and being sensible and whatever about it, and then you're going to get people in the middle who probably neither one way or the other, being sensible about it, and then you're going to get the extremists who probably going to call me fake and whatever else. I don't really care. But apps, okay, I know there's various different apps around, but there are apps now. I'm not disregarding apps on mobile devices, phones, tablets, whatever your want to use them on your computer, fine. But hear me out on why I've got concerns. These apps, from what I understand, from all the technical stuff that I can ever get on them, and this is another thing that I find really quite irritating, is that with a radio, you can find all the technical knowledge you want on how a radio works. With these apps that people keep producing, okay, and we're talking fairly low-level stuff where they're just using banks of sounds and information to, devices that are basically connected to the internet. Okay, so you've got some that don't use the internet, that can just use the device, the tablet or the phone standalone, or you've got what seems to be the trend now is that you've got these internet radio scanning apps now that also use banks of information. If that works for you, then fine. But just hear me out on why I've got concerns. My main concerns with these apps is, one, they can be designed by anyone. Okay, pretty much anyone, a teenager or a young kid that knows a little bit about programming could make an app. Okay, and I know that there are apps that are being designed by people who are very qualified and experts in their field and all of those other things. That's absolutely fine. But my main concerns with these apps is the fact that I think they're using AI. Okay, to an extent, this is my concern because most mobile phones come with AI technology built into them, as in, you can say something and it will intelligently respond with, it will understand your question, and it will intelligently respond or give you the information that you're looking for. Okay, that's just one thing. The other thing that I don't really like is the fact that most of these apps now require you to have internet connectivity. So, wherever you are, however you get it, whether it's from, a house or a business network, or whether it's through your mobile device, or whether it's by connecting it on a hotspot to your, to your phone, or any other device that provides internet, it's relying on the internet being available. That concerns me, because anyone will kind of really understand that the internet is just another plug-in to the matrix, and that is pretty much anything goes on that. Now, those two things linked together concern me, because you cannot find any technical information about how these apps work. We get generalized examples or information about how they work in theory, and I can fully understand how they work in theory, but we don't actually really know, for obvious reasons, because then these people wouldn't be making money. We don't get told the real technical stuff about how this stuff works. So a very clever programmer can build into their app, and some of these apps are pretty big. They can build into their app AI technology, scanning the internet, and of course we don't know what they're scanning. These could be set up radio stations with, and this is the problem. This is the problem that I've got with them. We don't really know, because what's sitting behind all of this, of course, is the driver, and the purpose of all of this is to make money. It's not serving the community, and certainly not serving the paranormal community, because otherwise people would be giving it away for free. another concern of mine is the fact that these things are getting more and more and more expensive. They're becoming more complicated, more elaborate apps that claim to do more and more and more amazing stuff, and they're also becoming much more expensive. You know, and that kind of rings alarm bells with me. So if I remember that rightly now, that's three things that I have concerns with. One is the fact that most devices have got AI in them, and AI is readily available now. Secondly, they rely very much on the internet being available to work properly. And thirdly is the amount of money that people are spending or having to spend to get hold of this technology. Now, while all of this is or isn't, can be or possibly useful for research and paranormal investigations and such like, I'm just not convinced that they're really honest. I'm kind of, I don't know, I think what I've done over the past few years is I've kind of sat back and observed the trends in what's actually happening, and I see people's comments about things, and there seems to be people who are absolutely and utterly, like, they will follow whatever else, you know, if someone comes up with an app every single week, they're going to buy it regardless, okay, and they just keep feeding back about how wonderful it all is and blah 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 blah, okay. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who, I've seen some vlogging videos from people who are completely just in the opposite direction and think these are things, you know, to quote a kind of Christianized type of thing, you know, this is from the devil, you know, we're all going to die, you're going to go to hell, that kind of, you know, but that kind of attitude, if you know what I mean. You know, they're spitting fire and brimstone about how bad these things are, and how you know, the people that's producing them are charlatans, and you know, that to me that's an extreme. I'm kind of, I suppose, somewhere in the middle, really, about it. I'm not a great fan of them. I have bought them. I have used them. They kind of work. But there's always an element of doubt with me about those three things, you know, those three things that just don't sit right with me, and I go a lot by my gut feeling, and I think a lot of people have said the same thing on various different forums, and I just sit back and observe, and I just think, yeah, I'm not the only one that's kind of reserved about, you know, the whole tablet app thing. I just not convinced, really. I'm just not really very convinced. If you've got comments that convince me, or that can convince me other ways, then I would very much like to hear your feedback and comments either way, really. You know, if you're absolutely against them or you absolutely love them, then please say so. I mean, but I would like to have an in-depth discussion about, you know, do these things really, really work? You know, and I fully understand. You know, the more you use these things, the more that they work, and all the rest of it, and absolutely fine. But there's just those underlying things for me that I just think, you know, is this really spirit communication, or is this information that's being fed into, you know, you asking questions, it figuring out how to respond, and of course all of this is easily manipulated via the internet. I'm not a great fan of using things like the internet for anything other than just getting information. And for things like spirit communication, I'm kind of not convinced that is really a very stable platform to rely on. It's my gut feeling, that's how I feel about it. I'm yet to be convinced, really. I really am yet to be convinced. Okay, thought for today. Let me know what you think and leave a comment down below, and thank you very much for watching.